All right, let's jump right in. We're about to tackle one of the most famous, and let's be honest, one of the most challenging teachings on divorce. But here's the thing. You can't really get what's going on unless you understand the massive debate happening behind the scenes. It's a debate that totally set the stage for a radical new way of thinking about marriage itself.
So this is what everyone knew. It has been said. This was basically the law of the land, right? Straight out of the law of Moses in Deuteronomy. And on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward. If you're going to divorce your wife, you have to give her this official certificate. It was just the procedure, the way things were done for generations.
But, and this is a big but, in reality, it turned into a massive loophole. Yeah, something that was originally meant to protect women basically became an escape hatch. It wasn't this super serious last-ditch option anymore. For many, it was just fill out the paperwork and you're free. A get-out-of-marriage-free card.
And this really gets to the core of the problem, a problem Jesus was always calling out: legalism. And I love how this slide puts it. It's a mindset that's always looking for loopholes. See, the original law allowed for divorce in some really specific, limited situations. But legalism, it stretched those exceptions so wide that they pretty much swallowed the rule. The whole spirit of the law was getting lost.
So what was the result? Well, divorce basically became a paperwork drill. It wasn't about devotion or faithfulness anymore. One expert called it purely a matter of paperwork. Think about that. As long as you had the right document, you were good to go. You could just hand over the certificate and boom, you were considered morally in the clear. Compliance mattered more than covenant. Now, this whole situation didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Oh no. It was all being fueled by this huge debate between the two biggest intellectual heavyweights of the day. So, let's meet the contenders, the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. Okay, so this lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got the school of Shammai. They were the strict ones. They said, nope, you can only get a divorce for something really serious, like major sexual misconduct. It's kind of like what we might call a fault-based divorce today. You need a big, provable reason. But then, you have the school of Hillel. They were way more lenient. Their view was super broad. You could divorce your wife for, well, almost anything. I mean, we're talking about things as small as burning dinner. Seriously, that's way more like our modern no-fault divorce, where you don't really need a specific reason. So when the religious leaders come up to Jesus and ask if a man can divorce his wife for every cause, ding, 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 you see the trap, right? That phrase, for every cause, was straight out of Hillel's playbook. This wasn't a real question. It was a classic gotcha moment. They were trying to box him in, to force him to pick a side. No matter who he chose, Hillel or Shammai, he'd instantly make enemies of the other group. It's the natural question, isn't it? Who is right? Do you go with the strict view to protect the marriage at all costs, or the more flexible view that seems a little more merciful? Which legal take is the right one? And Jesus' answer? It was neither. He completely sidestepped their trap. He refused to play their game. He didn't pick Team Shammai or Team Hillel. Instead, he just changed the entire conversation. So let's get into what he said, because honestly, for the people hearing it back then, it was absolutely revolutionary. And then he drops this bombshell. He starts with, "But I tell you," which is a huge deal. He's basically saying, you've heard what everyone else says, now listen to me. He's claiming an authority above all those traditional debates. And notice how he changes the focus? It's not about the paperwork anymore. It's about the deep, spiritual damage being done. It's a chain reaction of broken covenant. So right there, the whole conversation shifts. It's not about what's legally allowed anymore. It's about what's sacred. Jesus is saying the real issue isn't whether you follow the rules of divorce. It's that you're breaking apart something God himself put together. The question changes from, can I do this, to, is this faithful to God's design? But Jesus goes even deeper. He doesn't just stop at the what, he gets to the why, the real root of the whole problem. And here's his diagnosis: hardness of heart. He explains that the original divorce law from Moses, well, it wasn't God's plan A. It wasn't the ideal. It was a concession. It was basically a damage control measure because people's hearts were hard, because we're sinful and we hurt each other. It was a practical solution for a messy human problem, not a picture of what marriage was supposed to be. So instead of getting bogged down in debating Moses' law, which was a concession, remember, Jesus does something brilliant. He goes way, way back. He appeals to a higher law, the law of creation. He says, let's look at how this was designed from the very beginning, before all the sin and hard hearts mucked everything up.
And all of this leads to a fundamental shift in how we're supposed to see marriage. It's about moving from seeing it as a simple contract to seeing it as a profound covenant.
So let's just recap the big takeaways here. First, marriage is a divine covenant, not just a civil contract you can tear up. Second, God's original blueprint from creation, that trumps any human traditions or legal workarounds. Third, the real reason covenants break isn't because of bad laws, it's because of our own hard hearts. And finally, God's ideal, his hope, is always for unity and putting things back together, not for separation.
So when you boil it all down, Jesus wasn't just laying down a new, tougher rule. His goal was so much bigger. He wanted to restore the entire idea of marriage to what it was always meant to be, something sacred, something governed by real faithfulness, not by a constant search for legal loopholes. And that really leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? If we take this seriously, that marriage is a divine covenant, not just a human contract, what does that actually change for us, for how we view it, how we enter into it, and how we try to live it out today?